What are you looking for in recording then?
Well, I guess having the ability to, and I've been finding this with the solo thing, to have absolute control over all of that has been fantastic from start to finish. Actually putting together the recording myself, getting one of my best friends to master, handling the pressing, taking it into wherever it is that we're getting either the cassettes duplicated or the CD pressed. That degree of control over everything has been really great for me, and also having an interest in the graphic side of things as well, the visual side. Of that digital 8-track that I'm recording on today is basically full of material, portions of which I'll never release because if you let it sit for a while, I find that's a really good. You probably do this yourself. Just letting it sit for a while is really important, so that you can be as certain as you can under the circumstances that it is fit for. Some things I just make for myself.
Yeah.
The act or having access to a PA is really quite important, and being able to have that happen in a space where this kind of relates to why I'm in here today recording, as opposed to doing it in my room, in my front room, or whatever the case. I really like having the opportunity to do these things at a loud volume. That's something that I enjoy listening to, and being the one actually delivering it, so to speak, I find really invigorating. Being the person organising the show and also performing is it creates a lot of difficulties because your focus is then split on the night, and that has created a lot of problems. I think we're very fortunate in the sense that there are people running venues these days, and with bars that are people that are quite, well, if not necessarily interested in it, certainly tolerant of it. And at times, they will show an interest in these things. It's been quite interesting doing these shows at the After Dark and places like the Old Bar now, where we've got our night. And then, there were other spaces that have also been involved, like Pony and Four Paw and some others. And having the people that run those spaces approach me afterwards to inquire about something that was on the bill, like what asking about what actually was going on there, or showing an interest in it. When it's obviously not something that they would pursue outside of that context is great. That's something that I found really encouraging.
That's good, yeah.
That festival and the What Is Music Festival.
What Is Music?
Really important for me. Purely because that's where I saw White House live. That's where I've seen all of this stuff. The ones that have come to Australia, it's because of those festivals that you actually get the opportunity to see them. Seeing, Mensch, for example, at MIBM as well. MIBM was a really great one, I thought, in terms of Robin and Anthony's selections. It was really, really interesting. I was really pleased to see that they'd actually put in a bit of nasty stuff in there. Having Y35 on the bill was great. Really
good night, that actually,
absolutely. At least in comparison to the things that I've been observing in the States or Europe, it's really quite very underground and very minimal in comparison. And a lot of that does come down to population, I'm sure. It's just the same amount of people. It's just in terms of percentage, it's probably exactly the same as the States, but because there's a lot less people here, we have a lot less people involved in it, apparently. But it's not like it doesn't have precedent here as well, which I find is really interesting, having looked into the things that have, with really great interest, looked into the things that have been happening in my area over the last couple of decades has been really interesting. Tracing that back to SPK, and tracing it back to Striker and that sort of stuff.
It is interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
A lot of that stuff that's been kind of buried for me, and unearthing it has been really, over the last few years, has been really interesting for me. Well, I guess I come from sort of the punk hardcore thing, so I'm used to, I grew up going to shows in pubs, and that environment is really where I feel most at home. But of course, then it's really interesting to go to a performance at space that is very different. And I find increasingly these days, I find myself in gallery spaces, seeing performances. There was that great series of performances at Bus Gallery for the opening of Sunshine in Greece a couple of months back, which I was pretty actively involved.
Oh, okay.
I performed a couple of times on that one. And that was just a couple of days of all of these sorts of really, really interesting things from all sorts of different areas. You know, Pat's got a really broad palette of interests, and that was reflected in those performances.
What would you like to do live, do you think, that you haven't done yet, or that you haven't been able to do yet?
Play through a really huge PA. The Tote's been solo, has been the biggest PA I've played through, and I fucking loved it. I really want the opportunity to play through a huge PA. And that's the one thing that I can really point to.
This is noise we're talking about, and volume is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When somebody like Toby is doing the sound, really, he's somebody that performs noise himself, is really obsessive about it, and can really crank that PA system. It's fucking great. It was the same deal. I had a really good mixer at the Tote when I played there. He knew what the deal was.
Well, how important is it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Tantamount.
And this would be something that you would feel you'd have to do, is that right?
Absolutely.
Compelled to do.
I do feel very compelled to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason I'm in a dank room on a Saturday afternoon recording this stuff rather than enjoying my backyard or going for a walk.